with radical left-wing ecological terrorist groups? Yeah, so would we, but the Biden administration doesn't want you to know. We'll speak with
now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
And it's 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for joining us here on a busy Wednesday morning. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas will be here. 7:05, Eric Pratt of Gun Owners of America. 7:35, John Malcolm Heritage Foundation on that ruling against Trump in the D.C. Circuit. 8:05, Sean Spicer on the intrigue over at the RNC surrounding Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. And then Paula Scanlon's going to join us at 8:35. It's National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And we like girls and women in sports, especially if they were born as girls and women. We're weird that way.
Yep.
It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. And Julie, John Kerry is no longer your climate czar. They want to replace him with John Podesta. And, of course, they can because there's no accountability, there's no Senate oversight, there's no confirmation process. But you would think that there would be just a modicum of transparency here in terms of finding out what the hell this office does, how much money they spend doing it, and who they're talking to and coordinating with as they do whatever it is they do that we still can't get answers about. Enter Daniel Turner, Executive Director, Power the Future. And you have a simple question here. What the hell did John Kerry do? How much did it cost for him to do it? And was he coordinating with environmental wackos in the private sector? That seems easy to answer, Daniel.
Oh, Larry, you don't have a right to know that information. Who do you think you are?
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's really their answer, isn't it?
It is, and it's remarkable. We have 3 years now of this guy jet-setting around the world, going to all of these climate conferences. He's always talking about the commitment America will make, the promise America has, money America will spend to these climate funds around the world. And we just want to know, where does this come from? I've spoken to a number of members of Congress, and we've asked for John Kerry to reveal this information, as any government agency has to. We've used the Freedom of Information Act. They've stonewalled us, so we did file suit yesterday in D.C. court demanding that he turn over this information. The American people have a right to know how their money is being spent and why it's being spent.
Yeah, it's actually kind of it's a little creepy that he has, and this agency, both he and the agency, have repeatedly refused to disclose the names and job titles of Kerry's staff. These are government officials, and yet the public knows very little about it. Why do you think that is?
I mean, if you're doing something this secretly, it can't be for good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just think of all the times that your kids go in their room and they close the door and they say, "Don't
make
come
me
in."
think
Right?
about that.
Like, something's going on.
Hitting a little too close to home there with a mom of 3 teenage boys.
When you do things in secret, you don't want people to know about it, and the answer is why. And this is why we had to. And look, trust me, I don't want to have to spend money on litigation. And no offense to the numerous wonderful lawyers who listen to this program on their way to work. But litigation is expensive. Lawyers are expensive. I don't want to use my organization's resources for this. But we have to know what his office is doing. And the fact that he says, well, I don't have to tell you, well, now litigation is our only recourse.
By the way, just to clarity's sake, all the very expensive lawyers who listen to this program are worth every penny, Daniel Turner. And they'll probably be reaching out to you to help you with this case. What is there some kind of, executive privilege that they're claiming here, that this falls under the guise of national security or Pentagon? I mean, honestly, what is their argument here?
Their argument is that they don't have to tell you this information because they are sort of an extra government agency.
That makes it worse.
Exactly.
Oh, no, we operate outside of the government, so you don't have a right to know about it. Oh, well, thanks for confirming that there's a nefarious deep state at play here.
And every single person who has a job, I mean, when you go to the office in the morning, you have something to do that day. You have goals for that day. You wonderful radio hosts have goals and objectives, and you have meetings and a business side. Well, John Kerry's staff is going to work today. What are they doing? Right? Who are they coordinating with? What is their goal for the week, for the month, for the year? And to say, well, we don't have to tell you that, but we want taxpayer dollars to do it. That's the problem we have, right? There is no transparency, and then there's therefore no accountability. And the American people deserve that when their tax dollars are being used to fund this office.
I saw that Senator James Risch of Idaho, Republican, is demanding that the Biden administration submit John Podesta for Senate confirmation. Now, this made-up position of climate czar doesn't actually fall under any sort of proper procedure here. Is there any chance? First of all, what's the case he's making, and is there any chance that they will? I would love to see Podesta under the lights answering questions.
No, there's no way Podesta will do that. He also knows too much, right? Podesta goes back to the early Clinton years, so he's not going to sit before any sort of under oath testimony before Congress. When John Kerry went before Congress, he didn't disclose a lot of information. He claimed executive privilege, and that this is a case where executive privilege does not qualify. And look, John Kerry's not doing covert CIA work. I understand there are military and national security reasons to have classified names, classified information. This is a climate change office, and the fact that he doesn't tell us who works there, who they're coordinating with, or even what their goals are, means that they don't want the American people to know. And, you know, a lot of the Green Movement is always full of obfuscation and confusion. Look at the Inflation Reduction Act. That's what they called it. And then as soon as it was passed, they said, it's actually $1 trillion for green energy. They never really have to tell the whole story of what they're doing. Even they made fun of us a year ago. No one's going to ban your gas stove. Until they came out a couple weeks later, they're like, yeah, actually, we're going to ban gas stoves.
Yeah.
Right.
They never tell the truth.
Daniel, what kind of media attention is this getting? And I'm talking about, of course, right of center media is probably is covering this. But what sort of coverage is this getting from the mainstream media?
Well, this case literally just filed late yesterday afternoon, and you're the first radio show we're talking about. But I mean, you have to kick off with O'Connor and company. I mean, first ones to go. So I'm hoping media picks up on it today. I know there's a lot happening in the media, and there's the Senate bill and the House bills that failed yesterday. I hope it doesn't get pushed aside.
More importantly, the mainstream media supports all the goals of this sort of secretive agency. So I frankly doubt we'll get much. But
you've got the specter of the media actually championing secrecy, and lack of transparency in a government agency. Daniel, we appreciate you delivering this news first on our show, and in return, let's try to get you into trouble. Do you think if John Podesta did actually go through Senate confirmation? Well, one of the questions might be, so, Mr. Podesta, let's talk about the climate on Epstein Island.
Which is why he's not going to sit before any under oath confirmation. No, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Daniel Hepstein, great job, as always. Thanks for being our very favorite mouthpiece for Big Oil. He is the executive director at Power of the Future. Daniel's actually printed up cards that say that. It's fantastic. I've dubbed him and the sad thing is, I bet you'd like to take some money from Big Oil. Where is all that Big Oil money, by the way? Damn it. I want some too.
If they want to funnel it my way for this lawsuit, please, powerthefuture.com. We need your support, Big Oil.
Shameless. Thanks, Daniel. Always good to talk with you, my friend. It is 6:15 now. WMAL traffic.
Making sense of education, because what's happening in your kid's school matters. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Should we do more parodies like that? We should do
No.
like radio theater. We can do let's take a listen to John Podesta's confirmation hearing from yesterday. And then we can do a whole script like that. That's
well,
fun
if anyone
stuff.
could pull it off, you could.
I appreciate that. Wait a minute. I don't think that was a compliment. Sure. The legendary Hardin and Weaver, who, created mornings on WMAL for decades here. Absolute legend. They used to do stuff like that all the time. They would have, pretend senators call in with really big Southern accents. And
you could save that for Friday. There you go.
Wow. Patrice Onwuka, thanks you very much for that. All right, let's do a quick rundown on some new assaults on your Second Amendment being birthed in Maryland and Virginia. The latest in Maryland. I love that Democrats go to work in Annapolis and they think to themselves, what's wrong with this state? We
not
don't
enough
have...
porn.
Yeah.
For kids. Sorry.
Not enough porn for kids. and not enough restrictions on Second Amendment rights. Let's try to work them all in. They've got a brand new bill there that would ban owners from being able to carry without an insurance policy of at least $300,000. So if you have the right to carry, but you wouldn't be able to carry unless basically they're charging you for your right to protect yourself.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. There you go.
That's their okay. We're not going to infringe on your rights. We're just going to ask you to carry $300,000 worth of liability insurance.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in Virginia, they just passed a so-called assault weapon ban in the Virginia House. This is, they have their, 1-seat, 2-seat majority now, and this is what happens. Do you remember these Democrats when they were running in November, just a few months ago, saying, put me down into Richmond and we're going to ban your guns? I don't remember them saying that. I don't remember them saying, but now here we go. One of the first bills they passed, ban the guns.
Yep.
It's amazing how that works.
Well, I'm sure the criminals who will have to get these insurance plans, that's a deterrent, right, Larry? I'm sure these criminals are all going to take out these insurance plans on their illegal guns. There we go. Yeah,
it's the absurdity that we pointed out yesterday in DC crime bill, where it said they're not going to make it illegal to fire a gun in public. Oh, well, that'll do it.
That'll do it.
Because the law against killing people is really effective.
Right.
I wasn't going to kill that person, but now that I have to take out a $300,000 liability insurance claim, maybe I won't be a murderer.
Yeah.
And by the way, the people in Virginia are very concerned about crime. They're very concerned about violent crime in Alexandria, in Arlington, in
Richmond,
Fairfax County, in Richmond, high crime areas around Richmond. Here's the dirty little secret. Those criminals that you're afraid of, all of the crime you're seeing, all of the gun crime that you're seeing, they're not using so-called assault weapons.
No, they're not.
Those guns are not used to commit crimes, at least not the crimes that you read about on a daily basis. So banning them isn't actually going to make a difference with crime, especially considering criminals don't pay attention to gun bans. Anyway, those are the two latest now that they're pushing through in Virginia and in Maryland. Coming up at 7:05, we're going to talk to Eric Pratt of Gun Owners of America so he can tell you how you can mobilize and oppose those bills. Right now, it's 6:20. A really disconcerting bill is being proposed in the United States Senate. It comes from Senator Ed Markey, so that shouldn't surprise anybody, I suppose. Oh, I'm sorry. Congressman Jamie Raskin is introducing it in the House. So there's a match made in heaven. This is supposedly to commemorate the January 6th anniversary, right? And they're claiming that this is to stop private paramilitary activity. That sounds all well and good, right? Well, this is the United States. We shouldn't have private paramilitary groups out there. And
sure.
On the face of it, it's like, well, sure, we shouldn't. In fact, we don't, do we? Well, based on how they define it, actually, this might freak you out a little bit. Publicly patrol, drill, or engage in techniques capable of causing bodily injury or death. Now, there's a lot of people who train in Krav Maga or in jiu-jitsu or karate or various types of self-defense for that matter.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of former military people who continue to keep their skills up and keep their training up, their physical training as well as their military training, and they're in extracurricular groups, and they do things that this law would prohibit, like, listen to this, a private paramilitary organization, paramilitary organization means any group of 3 or more persons associating under a command structure for the purposes of functioning in public or training to function in public as a combat support, law enforcement, or security services unit. There's a lot of former... 3 dudes getting together and sort of redoing their training and staying fresh and frosty. It could apply to people teaching a group how to break a chokehold or to apply a chokehold to subdue somebody for self-defense purposes and everything. It would outlaw all of those things, all under the guise of, we can't have the Proud Boys doing what they did on January 6th.
Oh, yeah.
They're using January 6th. It's pretty outrageous.
A couple of months ago, they introduced a bill. I think this actually was longer. It was probably like 6 to 8 months ago. They introduced a bill. A Democrat introduced a bill to take away, hunting classes and in public schools. And so and out in the West, there's quite a lot of these sort of shooting sports that are actually in the schools.
Yes.
And again, these are attacks on sort of people's culture. And especially, in the Midwest and in the West. And this was to do away with that as a way of sort of making hunting and self-reliance a thing of the past. It is definitely an attack, an attempt to change that.
It would also prohibit, quote, interfering or interrupting government proceedings. And meanwhile, the congressmen and senators who are supporting this, they literally give tickets to Code Pink to come and disrupt judiciary committees.
Exactly.
It's 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37. It's O'Connor and Company this busy Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us from your nation's capital. Coming up at 7:05, Eric Pratt, Gun Owners of America, to talk about those laws we just discussed that are making their way through the assemblies in Richmond and in Annapolis. 7:35, John Malcolm, Heritage Foundation, on yesterday's ruling on President Trump's lack of immunity, according to the D.C. Circuit. 8:05, Sean Spicer on the rumors about Ronna McDaniel stepping down. And then at 8:35, Paula Scanlon, because it's National Girls and Women in Sports Day. My favorite female athlete, Julie Gunlock, joins us all morning long. Good to have you, Julie. You played a sport in high school, didn't you?
Anyway, what do we have on the schedule? No, I'm so awkward. Are you kidding? No.
I thought in high school you played a sport. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I dabbled here and there, but I'm not a very sporty girl.
Clearly, we'll get into that at 8:35 with Paula Scanlon. Joining us right now, also one of my second favorite female athlete, Cal Thomas.
Thanks. I did play sports in high school, and I played as a male, as a matter of fact, and it was very exciting. Although we did have a preschool game once against the girls' basketball team, and I fouled out immediately for holding.
Yeah, I bet you did. Suddenly it became a game of two-hand touch with you, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is before all the harassment laws and everything else. We had a good time.
I'll tell you something. I used to play in high school. I played boys' sports as well, and playing against men, that's a real handicap. Some of those guys are good. That's a burden, having to play sports against men.
Yes, it is. And but you became a man, so you might go back and try again.
Well, it's funny. It's not to dwell on this too long, but I was a bench warmer in our basketball team freshman year, and I quit the team because I got cast in the big school musical.
Oh.
And the coach literally said, I've never had to deal with this before.
Well, I sat on the bench a lot, too, and the great advantage to that was I got to sit next to the cheerleaders.
Exactly. Smart man.
Cal Thomas joins us now, and, I mean, you've seen D.C. politics and the kabuki theater of bills and press conferences and cloture votes going down. But this border bill, to see Joe Biden yesterday saying, well, there's chaos on the border and it's all Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans' fault, I think we've reached a new low here with the cynical use of politics.
Yeah, well, of course, he doesn't even know that Hamas is the terrorist group over there attacking Israel. So you can't really pay a whole lot of attention to what he says. He has had from the beginning, any president has, the authority to shut down the border. It's in the law. He claims that, it's all the Republicans' fault. It isn't. It's his fault. He undid, by executive order, everything Donald Trump did on the border the first day in office. And he keeps repeating a lie. It's just not true. No matter how many times you say it, it doesn't become more true.
Cal, last I checked, the media was really insistent on saying, the president claimed today without any evidence that president is... Where were all the reporters and TV hosts last night saying, well, Joe Biden is just flat out lying to you?
Well, they're in the tank too against Trump and against Republicans. The only Republicans that the media and the left likes are those who lose to Democrats. That's why you see John McCain and Bob Dole and other Republican presidential candidates who've lost in the past, endorsed by the New York Times and Washington Post as reasonable and middle-of-the-road people. They never endorse a Republican who has the possibility of winning. Never have, whether it's for statewide office, federal office, even local office. If you look down for the many years in the past, the list of the New York Times and Washington Post endorsement of candidates, not a single one is a Republican. So that ought to tell you something.
Yeah.
Well, Cal, just on this same thread, the Republicans failed to impeach Mayorkas. 3 Republicans actually voted with the Democrats to keep him in place at DHS. What do you make of that? I mean, Larry had a good point that some of these Republicans, one of the 3 is a strict constitutionalist and might not want this sort of abuse of the impeachment process. Ken Buck, of course, is just, probably voted because he thinks this will, harm Trump's chances. But what do you make of this failure to impeach Mayorkas, who lied to Congress?
Yeah, well, I think it was a fool's errand in the first place because there was no way he's going to be convicted in the Senate and removed from office. And even if he was, he'd simply be replaced by somebody else who was following the president's policies. This isn't about Mayorkas per se. This is the president of the United States and his policies who wants an open border. And this phony deal on immigration, still would allow 150,000 illegal crossings per month. And it's crazy. The president is required to uphold the laws of the United States. Our immigration laws have been passed by members of Congress, members of both parties over many years, and he is not upholding the laws on the books already. He says, I just need more power. No, you don't. You've got the power right now. This is all about flooding America with future Democrat voters.
Cal, do you have any predictions for the Super Bowl this weekend?
I think there will be at least millions of drunk people who play the game. How many times Taylor Swift is going to be shown on the television? I kind of favor the underdog 49ers. I mean, you got some great players on both sides, but I do want to see the 50-yard line proposal to Taylor. I think that would be really exciting television in our completely superficial age.
Oh, God weeps for all of us. Jesus wept. Thank you, Cal. Great to talk with you
guys.
as always. Thanks, man. This is where we are. You got a prediction for the Super Bowl? Well, let's talk Taylor Swift. Well, more bad news for the Tragic Kingdom down there in Disneyland. They're being sued. They're being sued by Gina Carano. Now, she was one of the stars of the hit Mandalorian show, part of the Star Wars universe, one of the best new creative shows that hit the Disney Plus streaming service. But then they fired Gina Carano. They went woke, and now they've gone broke. And Disney, of course, has lost millions in income over the year, actually billions of income over the last several years. The ratings for Mandalorian have tanked because they fired Gina Carano, who was one of the best things in it.
It's important to note that they fired her. And this is a quote from the Lucasfilm statement, which Lucasfilm is, of course, they partner with Disney to do all these sort of Star Wars shows. They said her social media posts, which, by the way, were not incendiary, were not racist. They were just pointing out, this was during coronavirus. They were pointing out some of the failures of the federal government, the shutdowns, and all of that.
And during Black Lives Matter, where she refused to jump on board with BLM.
That's right.
But that's all she said. She said, I'm not going to be a part of this.
They were mild posts. So Lucasfilm released a statement saying her social media posts denigrating people based on their culture and religious identities, again, not done, are abhorrent and unacceptable. Lucasfilm saying that about an actress, that will destroy an actress's career. Yeah. And she had a very hard time rebuilding her career.
Yeah.
So now she has sued. Sorry.
She says in the lawsuit that she lost millions of dollars in potential income. She lost her agent. She lost her lawyer, because you're absolutely right, Julie. You can fire somebody and then not say anything about them. Just walk away and just not say a thing. But they deliberately went out of their way to defame her in that statement.
Destroy her.
So now she is suing. And here's what's interesting. It's being backed by Elon Musk's X corporation. A while back, Elon Musk actually put a post out on X and said, if you were fired for something you said on X or on Twitter, let me know, because I will help you sue the company that fires you. Because he has a commitment, as he has said in the past, to keeping the X platform free of any kind of intimidation. He wants it to be a forum for free speech. And so Gina Carano said, Elon, let's talk. And now they are backing this entire lawsuit.
It is really interesting to hear her talk about this. She said, she said she reached out, she did what he said, filled out a form. And she said, I thought I'd never hear anything. And sure enough, they reached out to her and they are supporting her in this lawsuit and helping to finance it.
And I love the way the lawsuit reads. A short time ago, in a galaxy not so far away, defendants made it clear that only one orthodoxy in thought, speech, or action was acceptable in their empire, and that those who dared to question or failed to fully comply would not be tolerated. And again, I want to reiterate, part of what's going on here is that, yes, she was fired because she thought the wrong way. But also a big part of this is how they defamed her and talked about her when they fired her. And the damages caused there. Elon Musk then went on to the X platform and solicited more defendants, said, if you were discriminated against by Disney or its subsidiaries, ABC, ESPN, Marvel, just reply to this post to receive legal support. They also included a graphic that Disney General Entertainment Content Inclusion Standards puts out to all of the people who work in the company that Elon Musk describes as mandatory institutionalized racism and sexism. And it's the kind of falderall and nonsense that any person in corporate America sees in your basic diversity, equity, and inclusion forced human resources training program that all of us who work for a major corporation are forced to go through.
Yeah, it's also standard. These standards, these inclusion standards, set out sort of guidelines on, hiring people, and it is really based on their skin color. That is called racial discrimination. So at Disney, I love how Disney puts its
their
name
logos
and its
right
logo
there.
on it. And they're like, hey, this is how you how you discriminate against employees. So not looking good for Disney.
We will be watching this very carefully. Gosh, a really talented, strong, conservative young woman fired for something they say on Twitter. That's just outrageous. I might have to send Elon Musk a message as well.